In 1998, the gaming world stood on the edge of something new. The leap from 2D to 3D had only just begun. Super Mario 64 had proven it was possible, but few believed an adventure as rich and mysterious as The Legend of Zelda could make the same jump. Consoles were growing more powerful, but the world still felt small, flat and confined. And then came Ocarina of Time. It wasn't just a sequel, it was a promise that players could step inside a living world, not merely look at one. The Nintendo 64's limitation made it a technical gamble, yet what emerged redefined what a video game world could be. And for many, Hyrule wasn't pixels or polygons, it was the first place in gaming that felt real. Well, if you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. And stick around to the end of the video for an exclusive offer to channel members. Well, first of all, we've got the first step into Hyrule. So, in Ocarina of Time, you wake up to the soft rustle of leaves and the voice of a fairy calling your name. Hey, listen! It's a simple beginning. A child stirring in a wooden home nestled inside an ancient forest, but it marks the start of something extraordinary. Kokiri Forest isn't large by any modern standard, but in 1998, it felt like a world unto itself. Every corner invited curiosity, secret paths, hidden rupees, the echoes of waterfalls that hinted at a world beyond the trees. For players stepping into Ocarina of Time for the first time, that forest wasn't just a tutorial area, it was a gentle invitation to believe in this new kind of adventure. Leaving the forest is a moment that is burned into gaming history. As Link takes his first step out of the only home he's ever known, the music fades and suddenly, there it is. Hyrule Field stretches out in front of you, vast and open, sunlight spilling across the rolling hills. No loading screen, no walls, no invisible barriers, just a seamless world waiting to be explored. For players in the late 90s, this wasn't just a technical feat, it was an absolute revelation. It was freedom rendered in 3D, a promise that you could go anywhere, see everything, and uncover secrets on your own terms. And yet, what made that moment powerful wasn't just the scale, it was the feeling. The world felt alive in a way games hadn't before. Day turned into night, villagers locked their doors as skeletons rose from the soil. Time moved, and with it came a sense of permanence, a reminder that this world would exist whether you were there or not. It was the first time many players felt like guests in a living kingdom and not just participants on a level. At that moment, standing in Hyrule Field for the first time, Ocarina of Time stopped being a game and became a place. Captured that childhood dream of stepping beyond your neighbourhood and finding something vast, mysterious and endlessly explorable. The magic wasn't just that you could go anywhere, it was that for the first time, you wanted to. Well, next up we got breaking new ground. So when Ocarina of Time released, no one really knew what a 3D adventure game should feel like. There were no rules, just experimentation, guesswork and ambition. Nintendo wasn't trying to copy anyone, they were writing the rulebook as they went, and the result was kind of design alchemy. The perfect balance between simplicity, exploration, and cinematic storytelling that few games have ever replicated. At the heart of that revolution was Z-targeting, an idea very intuitive that feels invisible today. In a world where players were still learning how to navigate the 3D space, Ocarina of Time gave them a language. Locking on to enemies turned chaos into choreography. Battles became about rhythm and precision, and not just clumsy guessing. It was a mechanic born from theatre, quite literally. The development team studied stage combat to understand how actors maintained focus and positioning. And the solution, it was simple, keep your eyes on the target. From Dark Souls to Breath of the Wild, every modern action game owes a debt to that single innovation. Equally groundbreaking was the context-sensitive design, a minimalist approach that made the world feel alive without overwhelming the player. The same button could open a door, grab onto a ledge or speak to an NPC depending on the moment. That single word, action, changing at the bottom of the screen might seem something trivial now, but at the time it was revolutionary. It was Nintendo's design philosophy distilled into essence: make complexity feel effortless. Then you got the camera, cinematic yet functional, designed not only to show the action but also to frame it. Ocarina of Time was one of the first games to truly think in shots and angles, using perspective to tell story. When Link pulls the Master Sword, the camera doesn't just record it, it reveres it, tilting upwards as the light floods into the room. In that moment, the game stops being a toy box and becomes a stage. Even its pacing is deliberate. Quiet moments of calm before bursts of adventure. The open fields contrast with the claustrophobic dungeons, and the light-hearted melodies of the Kokiri balance the solemn tones of the temple. It wasn't just gameplay variety, it's emotional rhythm. Everything from the camera movements to the sound of the footsteps to the different surfaces was tuned to create immersion. By the time players reached their first major dungeon, Ocarina of Time had already accomplished something astonishing. It made the 3D world feel natural. It taught you how to exist within it, how to move, how to listen, how to notice. It was designed not through tutorials or menus but through experience, and the world itself was your teacher. Next up, let's have a look at the passage of time. So at its heart, Ocarina of Time isn't really about saving the world, it is about leaving it behind. The game's title isn't just a poetic phrase, it is a statement of purpose. Time itself is the true protagonist. From the first moment Link lifts the ocarina to his lips, the game begins weaving a story about change, memory, and the irreversible pull of growing up. When you first play as Child Link, the world feels bright and boundless. Kokiri Forest hums with life, Hyrule Castle Town is bustling with laughter and music, but after 7 years of sleep in the Temple of Time, you awaken into a world transformed. Grey skies, empty streets, friends turn to ghosts or strangers. You're stronger, but the cost of that strength is innocence. Few games have captured the feeling of lost childhood so elegantly. The way growing up gives you power, but also takes something away. That duality, child and adult, light and shadow, gives Ocarina of Time its enduring soul. The game doesn't just use time as a mechanic, it feels the weight of it. When you return to the forest as an adult to find your friends unchanged, you realise what's been taken from you. You are no longer part of their world. You've become a visitor in the life that you left behind. The ocarina itself becomes a symbol of that loss. A fragile, melodic link between moments that can't be reclaimed. Each song carries the weight of memory. Zelda's lullaby recalls the promise of destiny. Saria's song echoes the laughter of a friend who never truly grew up. And the Song of Time feels almost mournful, a reminder that even heroes can't escape the flow of years. The music in Ocarina of Time is like emotional architecture. It holds the world together. That sense of melancholy runs deep through Hyrule's soil. Beneath the hero's journey lies a quiet sadness, a recognition that everything changes and nothing lasts forever. You see it in the ruins of Lon Lon Ranch, in the empty marketplace, in the ghosts of Kakariko Village. Even victory feels bittersweet. When Link places the Master Sword back in its pedestal and returns to his childhood, it isn't a triumph, it's a farewell. It's rare for a game to understand time not as a mechanic but as a feeling, as something you can sense in the space between moments. Ocarina of Time does, and maybe that's why, even 27 years later, the story still lingers. Because every player in their own way knows what it means to grow up and wish, just once, they could play the song that takes them back. Well, next up we got echoes through generations, so some legends fade when technology moves on. Ocarina of Time didn't. It evolved, quietly, persistently, living on in the games that followed, not just as nostalgia, but as a foundation. You can see its fingerprints everywhere. Majora's Mask took its mechanics and turned them inward, crafting something darker and more psychological, a meditation on grief built on the bones of Ocarina's world. The Wind Waker reimagined the same spirit of adventure in a cel-shaded ocean. Its open seas and spiritual echoes of that first step into Hyrule Field, and Twilight Princess revisited its structure and tone, chasing the maturity that Ocarina only hinted at. And then, decades later, Breath of the Wild stripped everything back, returning to the same promise that defined 1998. Step outside, and that world is yours. Beyond Zelda, Ocarina's influence shaped the very grammar of 3D games. Z-targeting became the standard for lock-on mechanics. Elden Ring, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, they can all thank Ocarina of Time. Its blend of combat exploration and environmental puzzles inspired an entire generation of designers, many whom grew up playing Ocarina of Time. Even now, game developers talk about it with a kind of reverence, not as nostalgia, but as architecture. The influence isn't just mechanical, it is emotional. Ocarina of Time taught developers that players could connect to a world and not just move through it. It wasn't about realism, it was about presence. The quiet spaces, the way the wind carried through Hyrule Field, or the rain softened the music, it made it feel alive in a way few games had dared attempted. That attention to atmosphere became the new design ideal, the belief that worlds should breathe. Even its sound design still resonates. Koji Kondo's melodies aren't just iconic, they are structural. The game used sound as a kind of storytelling, giving every melody emotional purpose, and that approach where every music or song carries narrative weight continues in modern games like Journey, Hollow Knight, and also Tears of the Kingdom. Each of them, knowingly or not, hums the same tune that Ocarina started. And then you've got the cultural legacy, the speedrunners dissecting its code like archaeologists, fans restoring its worlds in high definition, others writing video essays, documentaries and love letters about what it meant to them. It's one of the few games that transcended its medium to become a shared mythology. For some, Ocarina of Time isn't just a game that they played, it is a place they lived. And 27 years later, the echoes have not faded. They've simply found new instruments, new ways to play the same song, and if you listen closely, you can still hear it. That first note on the ocarina carrying across generations. Well, next up, we got the cracks in the masterpiece. So no legend survives without scars. Ocarina of Time, for all its brilliance, is no exception. Time has a way of softening memory, of polishing the rough edges until that all is left is glow. But when you start to return to Ocarina in 2025, those edges are still there. They're sharp, they're visible, and also strangely comforting. The most obvious cracks lie in the controls and the camera. What once felt intuitive now feels quite clumsy. The N64's single analog stick and limited buttons made the navigation awkward, and the camera, whilst revolutionary for its time, often wrestled for control. Dungeons that once felt expansive can also feel cramped by modern standards, and the camera bumping against the walls obscuring puzzles. Yet, even here there is kind of a charm. It's a reminder of a medium that's still learning to walk before it learned to run. Then there's the pace, slower, more deliberate than modern audiences might expect. Text boxes linger, cutscenes unfold patiently. The game assumes you're going to stop and listen and notice. Today's players, raised on fast travel and instant gratification, might call the game sluggish, but in truth, the slowness is part of the spell. It forces you to inhabit Hyrule, to live in its rhythms rather than conquer them. The pauses between moments, the silence before a song, and the lull between battles are what made its world feel real. Of course, no discussion of Ocarina's flaws would be complete without the mentioning of the Water Temple. It's become something of a gaming legend itself, a symbol of both frustration and ambition. Changing water levels, equipping and unequipping the iron boots, retracing steps through nearly identical rooms, it's tedious, yes. It also represents the game's refusal to hold your hand. It demanded patience, memory, and logic. In its own way, the Water Temple is a test. Not of combat skill, but of endurance, a challenge that many cursed, but few forgot. Visually, Ocarina of Time has aged, there is no denying it. Its once breathtaking vistas are now muddy textures and angular models, but somehow that simplicity works in its favour. The rough polygons and painted skies evoke a kind of dreamlike abstraction, letting imagination fill in the gaps. When you remember Hyrule's field, you don't see the pixels, you see how it felt. And yet beneath all the roughness, something vital does remain. These flaws don't break the illusion, they make it human. They remind us that Ocarina of Time was crafted, not manufactured, that it was the product of creativity pushing the limits of its age. In a strange way, its imperfections are part of the authenticity. Like a crack in a beloved vinyl record, they are the sound of history playing through. Next up we got revisiting the legends. Well, booting up Ocarina of Time today feels like opening up a time capsule. The familiar chime of the title screen, the slow spin of Epona across Hyrule Field, it all returns like a half-remembered dream. But there is something different now. The wonder is still there, yet it's quieter, slower, and filtered through years of memory. You're going to realise you're not revisiting a game, you are revisiting yourself. There's a strange comfort in how small Hyrule feels now. The field that once seemed infinite can be crossed in minutes, but the emotional scale hasn't shrunk. Every village, every cave, every melody carries weight precisely because you remember what they meant when everything still felt new. It's a rare experience to see the edges of something that once felt endless and to love it more for its limits. The child in you races to see the next temple, the adult lingers on the quiet moments. The way the sun sets behind Death Mountain, the stillness in the Temple of Time. You start to notice things you never did before, the pacing, the restraint, the quiet sadness that runs through the game's veins. Maybe that's the difference between playing Ocarina of Time and replaying it. The first time you're chasing the adventure, the second time you're chasing your memory. It's impossible not to feel the passage of time while playing the game that's literally about it. Link's 7-year sleep mirrors your own absence. When he awakens to find Hyrule changed, you feel that loss too, because you've changed. The world hasn't just moved on in the story, it's moved on in reality, yet somehow slipping back into that green tunic feels like coming home. And that may be Ocarina of Time's greatest secret. It grows older with you. Every replay adds new meaning, every new melancholy, new warmth. You can't play it the same way twice because you're never going to be the same person twice. It remains what it always was, a legend about time made more powerful by its passing. Well, finally, let's have a look at the legacy of an ocarina. So, time turns memories into myths, and few myths have endured like the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. What began as an experiment in 3D design became something eternal, a shared touchstone for everyone who's ever lost themselves in its world. Its polygons may be primitive, its systems may be simple, but beneath those limits beats something timeless. That's imagination. It's proof that emotion doesn't age with technology and that wonder survives. Every generation since has chased its feeling. You can see it in Twilight Princess's solemn grandeur, in Breath of the Wild's open-air freedom, even in games far outside Zelda's lineage, each one echoing a design language that was born here. But Ocarina's legacy isn't just structural, it's spiritual. It's the belief that a game can be more than challenge or escape. It can be a place, a memory, a feeling you carry long after the screen fades to black. It also changed the way we talk about games. Before Ocarina, the idea of cinematic or emotional games felt aspirational. Developers began to see storytelling and interactivity not just as rivals, but as partners. Ocarina proved that a well-placed melody or a quiet pause could say more than a cutscene ever could. It showed that pacing could be narrative and that silence could speak. But its truest legacy may not be in the games that followed, it's in the players that grew up with it. The kids who crossed Hyrule Field for the first time, well, now they make games of their own. They design worlds that breathe, that dream, that remember, and for them, Ocarina of Time wasn't just inspiration, it was a promise that video games could be art worth feeling. And still, the Ocarina plays, its notes linger in the background of modern gaming. You can still hear it in every open field, every climbing melody, every quiet moment between quests. Because Ocarina of Time isn't just a chapter in gaming history, it's the melody of growing up, replayed across generations. Even now, when the sun sets over Hyrule Field and that familiar theme swells one last time, you can almost feel time itself pause. For a moment, you are a child again, standing on the edge of something vast and possible. When the music fades, it leaves behind a truth as simple as it's profound. Time moves forward, but legends somehow never stop singing. Well, that's my thoughts on Zelda Ocarina of Time, but next up, I wanted to bring your stories about Ocarina of Time, so I did put a call out on the channel to send me your memories of Ocarina of Time. I got some really excellent comments from the Triforce Time community, so I'm going to go through some of them now. First of all, we've got Ben Marple, and Ben says, I'm a 6th grade teacher, and last school year I played through Ocarina of Time daily on Nintendo Switch Online with my class during lunch. Each kid got a full 30 minutes, unless they died, in which case they went to the next kid. When we got to Ganondorf, every single kid got a turn and died against him, and only one kid got to the phase where he sends the big energy ball, and nobody got to Ganon. I then took a turn and got a bunch of heart pieces and a third bottle, so the cuckoo lady in Kakariko, and the one kid who got into the second Ganondorf phase then got his second attempt and beat Ganon using 2 fairies and a green potion in the process. We didn't have Nehru's love or damage reduction from the Great Fairy near Ganon's castle. When the student was about to beat Ganon, the class started chanting "Final blow! Final blow!" and generally just losing it like it was a Marvel movie. Easily one of my top 10 life experiences. It meant even more to me than arguably my first playthrough as a child. A story about nostalgia delivered to a group of kids 30 years after the game initially released, creating an adult reflective loop for me, and introducing a new generation of kids to Zelda games they will be more nostalgic for than Breath of the Wild or Echoes of Wisdom. Truly, it means the world to me. Well, thank you, Ben, for that comment. That is an excellent comment, and I really appreciate you sending that in. That is a really good story. I can imagine standing around loads of kids playing Ocarina of Time, chanting "Final blow." The final boss is already epic, so that is a fantastic story, and thank you for writing in. Okay, we've got some more. First of all, we've got Sepelda, and they say, I'll never forget spending weeks playing through Ocarina of Time as a child, collecting all the spiritual stones, expecting that to be the end of the game, only to realise that I wasn't even halfway. There was this futuristic, ravaged version of the world I spent so much time in. It was ready for me to then bring back to the brink of destruction. The constant surprise and the innovation is why Ocarina of Time is one of my favourite Zelda games. Next up we got Skeptic, and Skeptic says, I remember spending hours just wandering around all the different areas, either because I didn't know where to go, what to do, or I was just exploring. I also remember being scared of some of the dungeons, particularly the forest and the shadow temples at the bottom of the well. Next up we got Dark Dragon Medeus, and they say, Ocarina is the 3rd Zelda title that I played, obviously back in the N64 days, but back then I was fascinated by the 3D graphics and enjoyed the combat mechanics. While it overall still holds up quite well, its legacy cannot be underestimated for paving the way for future titles and adventure games in general. It does have quite a few mechanics that haven't aged gracefully, such as the horseback riding is very limited, the water temple being repetitive and tedious, with constant pausing and boot switching, and also the low difficulty outside 3 heart challenges. It's not quite in my top 5 Zelda titles. A Link to the Past, Majora's Mask, and both Wild Era games obviously covering that list, with either Skyward Sword or Link's Awakening being number 5. I also think its reputation slightly steals a bit of Mario 64's thunder when it comes to 3D gaming legacy, but it's still a masterpiece in its own right. Next up we got Maxim Newman, and they say my favourite game of all time, and that is the game that really started my passion for video games back in 1998. When my dad bought it for me. Thank you, Maxim, for sharing that memory. That is very cool. Next I've got Rodney and me videos, and Rodney says, still remember the moment my brother as Link first stepped out into Hyrule Field, past the owl, an open field, no path or clear targets beyond. You could go where you wished. And I remember thinking, even though I must have only been about 4 at the time, that wow, this is the future. This is modern gaming. This is freedom. I've never quite experienced it since, even with all the change that I've seen in my lifetime so far. So it's so clear in my mind and instilled a great sense of anything is possible for me in my life. Well, thank you, Rodney and my videos. That is a good memory there, and appreciate your comment. Finally, we've got CJ, and CJ says, I've got plenty of memories of Ocarina of Time. It was my first Zelda game, and now it's my favourite franchise. I remember my first playthrough vividly, and how each step of the journey was filled with that adventurous feeling and that joy of discovery. My surprise was enormous when, after beating the first 3 dungeons and grabbing the Master Sword, because I was confident I would face the final boss and just beat the game instead of Link growing up, and that was the first moment the game begun. Well, thank you, CJ, for your comment, and thank you everybody who added in your comments about your memories for Ocarina of Time. Truly is a wonderful game, and thank you for all the memories that you shared here today. Well, let me know down in the comments what you think about Zelda Ocarina of Time, and if by chance you've never played the game, it is available via Nintendo Switch Online on the Nintendo emulator, and I'm sure there's plenty of other ways to get it out there as well. Definitely play through Zelda Ocarina of Time. It is simply one of the best games ever made, and it's one of the best games for a very, very good reason. Well, that is it for this video today, looking back at Zelda Ocarina of Time, and as always, thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Zelda content here on Triforce Times. Thanks again, and I'll see you real soon. Well, thank you so much for watching the video, but today I'd like to let you know about the Triforce Times store. If you like Triforce Times content and you want to get some merchandise, then browse the online store today. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and loads more in all shapes and sizes and colours. Also, if you didn't see something on the store that you want, then let me know in the comments. Comment on the video and let me know what you want to see in the merch store, and I will make it happen. So if you enjoy Triforce Times and want to go above and beyond to support, then the store is a great place to do that. And also, you're going to get some high quality merchandise as well, so check out the Triforce Times store today with a selection of merch below each video, and you can also check out the store link in the description if you'd like to browse the whole store. Well, this video is brought to you by Triforce Times Backstage. This is available through Patreon or YouTube membership, and you're going to get exclusive benefits, plus you'll be able to go above and beyond to support Triforce Times. Free content is core to Triforce Times, and you can continue to enjoy these videos that you know and love. However, if you want to enjoy the benefits like early access, our community Discord, shoutouts in the credits of videos, content polls and exclusive videos, then select the tier that is right for you and join Triforce Times Backstage today. So help me make Triforce Times be even bigger and better, plus you're going to get some added benefits for a small fee every month. Well, thank you for listening, and now it is time to go back to the video.